Welcome, welcome.
Hello, everybody.
Oh, should we? Never mind. We're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're good. Thank you for joining us here on Memorial Day weekend, Saturday.
Yeah, we'll wait for a few minutes and get everyone logged in. I'm not logged in. I need to.
I'm logged in. I'm sporting my colors here.
Bonnie's patriotic.
I'm-
Well, tell them about your hat, Bonnie. That's a great hat.
Well, as you know, we are downtown winery. I'll take my mask off because we've already breathed in everybody's breath.
We've
here, so-
quarantined together,
Yeah, we've
so I feel
quarantined.
pretty good. And we do our self-health checks now
Yeah.
before we come to work.
Oh, did you read
I'll
that?
go get it.
Okay. Anyways,
Tell them all about it, Bonnie.
well, so downtown wineries, we've been trying to, lighten up the load for a lot of people. We've been closed and everything. So downtown wineries started a Thursday night, 4 to 7, that you could drive by and pick up wine. If you wanted to buy it by the bottle, buy it by the case. But that's changing, so I'll tell you that in a few minutes. So the downtown wineries put together, we have a big sign called I Heart Paso in front of all of our wineries downtown and other businesses. And then the silkscreen people that made it, they actually made the hats for us, right?
It was great. So the signs, we got the signs ordered, and they look great. I can't remember how many we ordered. We ordered a lot. So if you're a downtown Paso Robles business and would like a sign, contact Bodegas Paso Robles on 13th Street, because that's where they are. I don't have any more because I distributed mine. But just by ordering the signs, they donated 100 shirts, I think,
And
hats. It was great.
So I'm usually not a hat person, but I have to tell you, I'm liking my I Heart Paso.
That's like a high quality screen there.
Yeah, very high quality. And so the screening people, what is the name of them? Do you remember?
Oh my gosh, no.
Whatever.
We'll try to post it later.
We'll
'cause,
post it, but they do
huge
local
thank you.
screening. So if you're looking for something to boost your business and stuff, definitely get a hold of them.
Yeah.
But we'll post their name because I'm not.
It's like a trucker hat style hat.
Yeah, I had to loosen my neck because my ears typically will stick out.
Yeah, they were sticking out.
But then if I tuck them in, then I get a headache because it'll be too tight.
Oh,
so
see,
mine gets,
I loosened mine a little, yeah. But
so
yeah,
I don't know. Sometimes I just can't wear
I
it.
like my bang.
Bonnie.
I'm into bangs.
Bonnie's
for some
styling, and she, as the chicken lady,
reason.
wore the I Heart Paso hat.
And,
shirt.
they made a t-shirt to fit over my chicken suit that I could heart it.
Yeah.
Wait, they actually like.
No,
specifically
it was a
made for you.
2X.
Okay.
So the chicken lady really isn't a 2X, just with the uniform on or the chicken on. But
So if you want to send the chicken lady anything,
Oh my gosh, what is that voice that we're hearing? Just so you guys know, the hand that you have seen behind the screen,
We're
this
still-
is Anna, who we have talked into joining us
look
today.
this way, Nana. Look at them.
Look at the camera.
She's a little camera shy. She's like Dad, but pretty soon she'll have her own bottle.
Absolutely.
Her little head
gosh.
will be on there.
why don't I have my own bottle?
You will.
You will.
You're gonna be sitting there with us. Your picture.
So today, actually, since Anna's joining us, she was able to pick our topic, and she'll be fielding questions. So what we're going to be doing today is talking about like winemaking 101. And so Anna has created a series of questions, and because we were actually open today, I have not had a chance to really go through them too much. So it'll be very off the cuff and probably much closer to reality, and you'll get the hard, cold truth of all of the questions.
Oh my gosh. Just
Unfiltered, I
take the
guess.
questions with you.
I guess, if you will. So we'll be going through those questions, and feel free to ask your questions as well, and we will answer them as best as we can. Before we do that, we're going to go over some stages and phases of like what's going on here in Paso. Just if you guys weren't here on Wednesday, we had some announcements, and then every day everything changes too. So we'll continue telling you guys about that. And then of course, as always, we'll be doing some tips for quarantine at the end, so I'm quite excited.
Right on.
So, last Wednesday they had announced, just to go over what happened here in Paso, if you guys are locals, great. If not, you'll be able to come soon. We can't wait to see you, everybody. But the biggest thing was they allowed restaurants to open at a 50% capacity, as long as they are following the county health rules. So in order to celebrate, I went out and I had a margarita with my friends at the Gaucho last night.
And I did their margaritas. Very good.
They're very good.
Very good. I
So,
have to go and get one tonight.
yeah. Oh.
Don't tell me that.
You don't wanna go with me? Oh, look at her, she knows
Aww. And you can still take them for takeout
that.
though.
To go, yeah, so
So-
that's, yeah.
Because originally I was actually, on Friday, I was supposed to go to the park with my friends to have a drink. And they actually had a table, so we
Wow.
ate in.
Cool.
It was so weird. Haven't done that in a long time. In years. It's been years.
Yeah, feels like years, but only months.
Well, and it's so funny because we just had some people earlier, and what's confusing to me is everyone keeps asking us like, what stage are we in, which phase, all this stuff. And so San Luis Obispo County, we have 3 stages, I believe, where the state has 4 phases. So sometimes it's difficult to keep up with both of them, and especially now because they seem to be changing as we go. So the rules that we had for phase 2 have changed, of course, because of a living document. And we are quote unquote in the latter parts of stage 2, which I don't know if that's like a whole nother phase within the stage. It's very difficult to keep track. I'm sure it's the same for you.
To me, it's like trying to keeping up with the Kardashians.
Bonnie was telling me some great stories about the Kardashians
Yeah.
earlier.
Trying to keep up with them.
Yeah, you know what? That's exactly like going through quarantine and coronavirus this year is like keeping up with the Kardashians.
Yeah.
And we all know how much we love that show.
Yeah,
I
Right?
hate that show.
Tell us how you really feel.
Oh, you're on.
Uh,
There's people that like that stuff.
Hey Carol, thanks for coming in. It was so nice to finally put a face to a name. It was a pleasure to see you. What are we drinking? So while we filled your questions, we're gonna wet our whistle. And very excited. As you guys know, we bottled our wine when this all started. This was in late March. And every few weeks we taste the wines just to see how they're developing. So we know when we're gonna be releasing them. If spring, fall, summer. So the other day I brought down a couple and we opened this 2018 Cabernet.
Reserve.
Bonnie almost had a heart attack.
Oh, really?
The Reserve.
Oh, Reserve, I apologize.
Reserve. It is to die for.
Yeah,
Wow.
so I'm quite excited. I'm gonna pour myself some while we,
Yes.
Well,
And you know
look at
what's
our
so
first
funny is
question.
because you know how she's all big on the Syrah.
I am.
But we opened a Reserve Syrah yesterday and she actually said, she goes, I think I like the cab better. And she's not a.
You heard it here first.
Yes.
You heard it here
And that's
first.
kind of, here you go. You can.
Bonnie's telling all my dirty secrets.
No, they're not. It was public.
Oh my god.
All right, kids.
So,
Shall we?
yeah. Anna, since she actually,
Put that right in front of
you
me.
can, that's fine with me. So since Anna actually wrote these questions, oh, by the way, are these the clean pens?
Yes,
Okay, just make sure you got them from the sanitized
I
pen
did.
jar.
Yeah, and then we'll sanitize them and put them in the X marks the spot.
Well, no, we'll put them in the X and then sanitize them and put them back in the clean.
Yes.
Right, Barbasol?
Yeah, Barbasol. We're gonna do Barbasol.
Actually, I do want to send out a huge thank you to Wineshine because he is providing us with all of our hand sanitation needs. So I went up there and I was able to buy in bulk. So if you guys want any hand sanitizer, he does have some very small containers, yeah, like spray bottle and another one. I bought in bulk, so I just brought a big gallon jug over there.
But this is our container, and look how cool this is.
Yeah.
The
Caitlin
little ones have
scored
this-
on this thing.
And just have
Yuma.
a little
She got this in Yuma. So
Yuma, Arizona, close to Mexico, handcrafted. Not in China. No offense, it's fine. So the logo is not, I think, on the hand sanitizer. He has stickers on him that just says hand sanitizer and wine shine. But you can go buy in bulk or the small containers. So huge thanks to them and all the other distilleries that are helping us be able to reopen, because it's almost impossible to get supplies right now for sanitation. So at any rate, okay, Anna, thanks for joining us. Let's go ahead and start with question number 1.
Okay, so I figured the easiest
Oh, well, actually,
question. Oh,
I'm so
okay.
sorry to interrupt. We were just talking about interrupting people and how annoying they are, and I'm so sorry. But I did want to ask, what inspired you to want to do like a 101 question?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, I think it was a fun
101,
idea.
Well, I just figured that there's probably a lot that goes into actually winemaking. I mean, there is. So if you
You
get
figured that?
if you get swamped by all the technical questions, I feel like people tend to just turn off one ear. You know, so why not ask the fun questions about winemaking, and
Absolutely.
maybe get rid of some of the myths that assumptions that people have about winemaking. Like, take away all the beautiful things they see.
Because it's really romantic. And,
Very romantic.
Yeah, whimsical.
It is,
Yeah.
it is, and you know, that, well, we can get to that.
Okay, let's go with number 1.
Well, actually, since you're on the topic, do you want to just talk about, like, in general, though, because you were kind of onto something about, like, oh, it's very romantic.
The myth behind it, it's just kind of like, I'm sure a lot of careers that people think or jobs that how wonderful it is, but you know, it's like a lot of, the consumer or people who taste wine, they see the front end, you know, the front of the house, but they don't see the little mice in the back on the wheels, and because that's very separate from the experience part of the operation, and it is a combination of science and art. It's a lot going on, but people think it's, you know, we walk the vineyards and sing poetry and talk to the vines and ride our horses through the vineyard or whatever it is, but in reality it's a lot of hard work. It's not anything that is something you can go home and turn off either. So you know, you're constantly thinking about problems that can happen and problem solving, and problems can go on at any time, and it just physically it's a demanding job because it's year round, not just at harvest.
But isn't harvest like, that's where you're pretty much harvest can be like 3 months, right?
It would be like the opposite of the quarantine, because you're on the go all the time, and instead of like gaining weight, you're losing weight because you're just running everywhere. Yeah, it's physically demanding. You'll get up in the morning, you don't get home. You don't know when you're gonna get home because there could be something that comes in. You could have a breakdown, you could have problems, but it's something different every day, because it's not just you pick the grapes and then they're in the winery. Once they're in the winery, it's constant attention until they're barreled down, really.
Right.
And
And
then
anything can happen.
anything can happen, and then the attention, of course, you still have to pay attention while they're in barrel because it's always alive, but at least the barreling process, that's, you know, aging, and so it's a little not as critical because it's stabilized, it's in the barrel, you're good to go. But otherwise, I mean, it's fermenting and it's alive, and you're, I mean, 2 or 3 times a day you're working with each lot. You could have 1 lot, you could have 5 lots, you could have a bunch, and as soon as it starts, you're not done until everything's in the barrel. So
To the last little grape rolls in.
till the last little grape, actually, till the last little wine drop goes in to the barrel. Really.
Wow.
The last little grape. Oh, that's the other myth, is that we look at each berry and like kiss it and, you know,
Oh, really?
crush it with our little fingers.
Well, I heard a myth was, well, when people, we'll talk, I think that's a question when we get to the reserve, then I'll talk.
Oh, I do have a question in there.
On the
actually,
reserve?
on myths in general. So I figure, okay, I'm not going to go in order of they see.
But let me just say one thing about the romance. I have to say, you know, about the romance of wine to me, as a consumer and as somebody who loves wine. Opening a bottle of wine, there's a whole thing to it, and you can make it very romantic. I think when you open a bottle of wine, it's
Well, yeah, you can.
it's very it's very seductive sometimes. But that's one reason why I'm a cork girl, because there's something about the anticipation of, yay, I'm going to be opening that and opening it, and then there's just a whole little system. That's just mine. So I feel wine is very romantic.
And I think that's where people have that theory of winemaking being romantic, because wine is a very romantic and part of like a whole experience, like it can be a very
it's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
Wine drinking is a lifestyle.
And so people think the backside of that and the making and the production and the growing is just as romantic, where it's not necessarily.
Yeah. So I'm probably this year, I'm hoping that I'll be a part of that, so I'll be able to experience that back end.
Oh, I have a great analogy. So basically, like if you're at a nice romantic dinner and you're having, this wonderful halibut, maybe like, macadamia crusted halibut with like, I don't know, maybe mashed potatoes or some rice, something wonderful, so succulent, so delicious. And you think that chef or the whole process of that fish getting on your plate is just as romantic as that meal and delicious as that meal. But then also think, because I know that you guys can definitely identify this, think about the fisherman who caught the fish, sliced it open, gutted it, took those guts, threw the fish on it, that's the backside of the wine business. That's the best analogy.
That's a good analogy.
On the shorthand. Okay.
Those damn guts.
Here we go. Next question.
Okay, next question. Okay.
Can I have a sip?
Oh, I've already been sipping. Why do you have to ask my permission?
Well, because you're the star today.
What do you think about canned wine?
Ooh. Okay, so packaging, like I love innovation. Obviously, just like the jug wine came about, it was just alternative packaging that people really are drawn to. And just like canned wine initially. So I'm thinking about this while I'm talking, which is not good. I'm gonna break this down into like the concept of it and then the practical use of it for me personally. Conceptually, the can I think is good. I think they have everything down as far as the lining, so there's no interaction with the metal, because I know that can happen, especially with the wine, the higher acidity. With beer, I don't think it's as much of an issue, but I know that there's special lining on any beer that's canned under pressure, like with the nitrogen. I think it's a great concept. Sweet. It doesn't, just like we were talking about with barrel aging last week, it's not going to allow, with the cork, there is just very minimal aging over time. So I think the ageability of a can is not going to happen. I think a can is something that you're not going to put on a wine rack and age for 20 years.
Right.
So Bonnie is probably not as into cans per se.
Not.
So you're targeting a different market.
Yeah, I'm not going to answer this one.
Okay.
I will say my experience with canned wine, I won't say where I got it, but what? It was my first time trying canned wine, and I did it only to get my sister upset because she hates canned wine. But I put it in a glass, and then I had some in the can, and I felt like in the can, it was like suffocating almost. Yeah, and I feel like wine is meant to breathe and have that air.
It's meant to have mouth to mouth.
Yeah, mouth to mouth. So that was just my experience with.
But how did it taste?
Not as good as in the glass, because there was a difference between pouring it in the glass.
So did it taste better after you poured it in the glass?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, that's a big thing too. Is if you drink it from the can or if you're pouring. So I think for every time that I have had the canned wine, I'm typically at a sporting event or on the lake. Sorry. Or somewhere, I had one at Yosemite. We went snowshoeing, and so
it's convenient.
It was great. It is convenient, but if you're not enjoying it out of this, number one, you don't know how much you have to go, and it gets warm. That's my other concern about canned wine. especially in the summertime. If you have canned wine, take it to the beach, you open it, a lot of times one can is 2 glasses. It's not 1 glass, it's actually 2. So that is another issue that I see. Yeah, and you can't put ice in it if it's white wine and you're at a sporting event and you're not really concerned about
Good question.
the quality. So conceptually, for me, more difficult.
I compare, I'm gonna say it.
Do it, Bonnie.
I compare
Raw
canned
and
wine
unfiltered.
to like a white Zinfandel, a Sutter Home white Zinfandel, or a Barefoot. That's what canned wine is. It's an I'm gonna say it's a cheap drunk. And to me, if I'm gonna get drunk, or if I wanna drink, wine is a lifestyle to me, so I'm not gonna abuse it and drink something cheap to where I would, if I'm gonna drink, I might as well go have a cocktail.
Yeah, I mean,
That's just my style.
those
So I'm
people
thinking-
who want, like, I mean, honestly, like, I get it. The people who like the wine,
Coolers.
the
and stuff.
coolers and like the wines in the
That's
box
that
and
goes
things like that.
towards, that's their
It's fun.
target.
Absolutely.
That's their target, yeah.
Absolutely. But yeah, it's like, for me, the biggest other issue is like the 2 glasses in 1 can.
Yeah.
It's a sip, wine is to be sipped. It takes so long to go through that can, and you can't just
It's like
put a cork on it and put it back in wherever.
Yeah.
You have to finish it once it's open. So,
It's true.
Okay.
So in a way, like you're chugging it in a way that's
Yeah.
Wine's not really meant to go down.
Yeah, you don't say down, and I'm not saying that I haven't done it, but I have chugged a little when I had to.
Right.
But,
wine,
mhm,
when you had to,
when I had to, like,
Oh.
if I was
Like before
going,
this.
restaurants closing or this or that,
or
or,
when I had to, like, if I had to go and I had some left, I usually save it to go home, and I went, I can finish this. Gunk.
see, okay, well, I won't even get into it.
Next
Okay.
question.
Next question.
Okay. This one I think is going to be really fun. Okay. Do you think the market for winemakers is overly saturated in Paso Robles? Or would you think there's a big difference between small and large wineries in terms of like where a young winemaker, fresh winemaker is coming out?
Now, okay, so this is like a multi-tiered question, I think. And so do I think Paso Robles is oversaturated? Well, right now, absolutely, because we have, over 200 wine, I don't even know what the real number is, and we can't have anyone come into the county, so that's kind of frustrating. So oversaturation right now, absolutely. Paso, we have, the majority of the wineries here are small, which I think is good, and I think that's also why we can all survive. I do think that it is becoming somewhat oversaturated. We still have a lot of the tourism, I mean, not in the coronavirus times. Throughout the rest of the year, it seems to be enough people to keep everyone busy. Although I will say, you have to understand, it's not necessarily that everyone's making a lot of money, because every winery has a different economics. So some wineries don't need to make money, others do. So everyone has a different economic in that way. So sometimes that saturation point isn't fair because the free market's not really working out very well. But the other thing I was going to mention is I feel really great to be here in Paso Robles because the majority of the wineries here are small, where if you go to other areas, even Monterey County on the Central Coast, and then of course definitely up in the Napa and Sonoma area, that's where all the quote unquote big boys play. And to me, the back end of the wine industry, when you're talking about saturation, is very unfair, because if you go to the grocery, to me it's almost like 2 different markets. The wines that are on the shelf at the grocery store, there are some grocery stores outside of this area that you can go to, and you can basically look at all the labels and say, all of those labels are owned by 3 companies. And it's like so that separation has become even more and more in the last 10 years, where there are 3 or 4 huge mega international corporations that own all of the big brands that are distributed throughout everywhere. And it's hard to educate consumers on that because new labels are coming out all the time, but they don't realize they're all owned by the same people. So, and then of course things get bought and sold, and I mean, like, Constellation is one of the big ones, and we used to sell grapes to them. But, you know, they own Mandavi, they own Prisoner, they own, God, I can't think of, like, I'm at a loss right now because we're so, like, raw and unfiltered, but they own, I can't remember if they sold Wild Horse or not.
Well, Wild Horse was owned by Kenneth Volk. He sold it.
He sold it, and then it went to, God, I can't remember. My mind is mush today because it's been a long day, but I know it was owned by Diageo, and then I can't remember who owns it now. But basically, you have and then the big companies end up buying each other too.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's nuts. Like Gallo, I mean,
and so they have all those big companies have, you know, there's different winemakers too.
So,
right?
Ooh, I am reading your guys' comments as well, so definitely shoot those in if you have. Jeff Nichols, and I agree, and I also disagree, and I am going to emphasize this. I have been so touched by Paso Robles recently during this COVID-19 thing that to me separates it from a corporate environment, and it's been very touching. So Jeff was saying, and I do agree in a lot of ways. So the ambiance of Paso Robles is phasing into a Napa setting, especially if the price advantage of Paso is scaling up, and absolutely. When we first got in this business, even when we first opened the tasting room, so 2006, we had free tasting. And then the only reason that we actually charged because we had so many, I would call them frequent flyers, taste and not buy. So that's why we had to do a tasting fee. But we try to definitely be on the reasonable end of wine because I use myself as the consumer, and I can't spend $125 on a bottle of wine every night. And if you would have told me that Paso wines are going to get into that category, I would have told you were nuts. But I see it more often than not, and that I do agree is like that high end, that thing that everyone associates with Napa, and then especially the experiences. Things have gone to just the mega experience. You pay to park. I think I've heard at one place. It's not Disneyland here. We're not Disneyland. I don't know. What is in that respect, yes. But I will say recently it's been amazing to see that local vibe. And so I don't think it is necessarily, oh look, my dad's calling. I'm not going to answer that.
You should.
Well, what if it's good? I don't want it to be a long conversation.
Just say, Dad, I'm on the phone. You want to be on live with me?
No. Then he's going to be angry. Okay, hold on. Why don't you tell him what you think?
okay, so my dad and I were talking one night, and it occurred to me.
Hey, we're on that little Facebook Live thing. But
You know, we have all these college graduates, right? From Cal Poly and everything like that. And I only graduated from college 4 years ago, but I was thinking, I can't imagine graduating in this kind of market.
Really?
But we do have graduates coming in.
And we have so many graduates from Cal Poly
In winemaking,
and it's amazing. But the thing that I've noticed is they're not leaving; they're staying in Paso.
Okay.
Cool. So if all these new little upcoming interns are interning here in Paso, and a lot of them don't want to leave. I mean, that's one thing about Paso. It's a wonderful place, and I'm hoping that we don't become a Napa, but there's a lot of big wineries out here that they want us to become a Napa.
They want the Napa money and the Napa land values.
But you know what? Let's see.
But yeah, how about this? I will say, I don't think that that's the way of Pianetta. I don't think that's what
it's not, and that's one thing I love about it. We're small.
Mm-hmm.
We're not gonna be shipping international. you can.
Unless I'm smuggling it in
Yeah.
my suitcase.
And I've done that before. Pianetta has flown all over the world with me. And the thing is there's so many people that get so used to drinking the mass-produced wines. Oh, this is a Robert Mondavi. Well, it's really not.
No.
It's like, okay, if you were to go and taste a real Robert Mondavi or a real Stag's Leap or, Silver Horse and all those places, they're wonderful, but they do ship internationally, but they're not going to ship their really good stuff. You're going to get their bottom line
Yeah.
wine to where our bottom line is better.
Yeah, and it's personality. Like I get I'm gonna say one more thing about the whole Napa experience. Like sometimes, you go to these places or, for example, I was invited last year to, not a winemaker dinner, but it was dinner at one of the big kind of Napa style wineries here. And, where they do a different pairing with every course and all that. And you go, and it is a great experience. It's fun. And I sit there and then I get a little jealous, I'm not gonna lie, and you're just like, oh my God, this is beautiful. I mean, what are we doing? And you get a little tense because it's a nice experience and it's something that we can't do where we are and with our structure and but then I just say, I'm like, that's not what I want to be because that's not who we are and that's the family winery kind of thing. So I think that's how
But I just really need to give I need to give a kudos to Napa because all the way up to this day, if it wasn't for Napa, California wouldn't be the wine region as we are today.
That's very true.
And so thank you, Napa Valley, for paving the way for us to be able to. So that's all I have to say.
Okay. I hope we answered your
You're
question.
looking me in my eye. You told me that when you cheers, you're supposed
You
to
didn't
look.
cheers to me.
I did the cheers.
Right, get
break.
over here.
I'm not,
So, Anna,
in the eye.
Next question.
Okay, next question.
Oh, I just got ghost.
Okay, so more of a down to the earth winemaking question, and this is probably a big question. What's the most difficult variety to work? Varietal, thank you. Varietal to work with, and maybe to make it easier if we were putting it in like your vineyard climate. Would that work?
Oh, okay, that's a great thing because I was going to answer that in a few different ways. Sometimes it's not necessarily the varietal, but what you're trying to do with it. So, for example, Cabernet can be easy to work with, but then let's say you wanted to do a late harvest or a specific style of Cabernet or something, that's where it gets challenging because you're trying to manipulate it a little bit. Where we are, and this has been really kind of the exciting part of growing as a winery is we planted Cabernet and Syrah when we initially just wanted to be a vineyard. And when we started the winery, you can't just change a vineyard overnight. So we started sourcing grapes from other locations, and you start realizing that that whole terroir thing is a big deal. So
It's a huge dish.
huge, and you're like, I love being able to go to other locations and get grapes. So the grapes to answer your question about our location in San Miguel, number one, Pinot. Like I know everyone loves Pinot, but Pinot in where we are is a little not going to happen. Even in Paso in general, there are a few locations that can, but San Miguel to me has a few different extremes. So we're a little hotter in the day and a little cooler at night, and we get a little bit of a breeze that can be very disruptive. So Pinot number one. Whites I don't know too much about, but whites in general where we are I don't think would do very well at all.
Maybe a Viognier might.
Maybe. Well, and when you ask me about personally, like in the winery as fruit, what's the most difficult varietal? I would say white wines because I don't know. I've never made them, so anything white. I think in some places they're doing okay with like Albarino in the heat too.
Yeah,
I don't know about that.
Albarino is, actually the Central Coast, I found out, is Albarino is one of the biggest places that, it's grown here in Paso, the Central Coast.
Mhm.
Albarino is huge here now.
Just like what we were talking about with, what was the other, was it Sangiovese or
San-
Barbera? I think it was Sangiovese.
Sangiovese,
Yeah.
Well, Sangiovese could be a little picky, just like Pinot Noir.
That's another thing you don't see much in Napa is Albarino.
No,
Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Napa.
because they're Spanish.
So some certain varietals have really found a home here. You know, because back, let's see, so when I first graduated college, which I'm not going to name the year, the GSMs were huge, and that has really kind of dominated that growth of the west side, I would say. And all those, a GSM is the Grenache Syrah Mauvais. So that really bounced everything, and then some of the Bordeaux blends, and then now the Spanish varietals are big.
And that's why that's what Paso, we have so many microclimates around here to where that's the reason why we can grow so many varietals.
Mhm.
Like the GSMs from the Rhone Valley of France, and our Bordeaux styles, our the Spanish styles, and there's a lot of Italian style grapes that are grown here.
Actually, here's a fun fact for you all. Dad does get to be on another Zoom, and actually we voluntold Dad to go and be on a Zoom with the Wine Alliance, which, if you guys aren't familiar, they're the organization that puts on the wine festival and all of the local cooperative wine events. So in honor of, I believe it must be because it's Memorial Day, on the 29th, so not this weekend, but next Friday, he is going to be on a group Zoom, and I'm going to email this out to all of our club members and customers. He will be on Zoom with 3 other winemakers who were all former Navy vets. And so the other day, everyone met here so that everyone could exchange bottles, and they just were like peas and like I was trying to explain to Dad what Zoom is, and they ended up talking about all kinds of stuff for an hour.
Yeah, like when they were in the service, and for the first time, John had an ear-to-ear grin.
He was happy, so
Yeah.
he's really actually looking forward to the Zoom, and I'm really glad that he's doing it.
Yeah.
But the reason I'm bringing that up is one of the wineries that is participating is Tackett, and Leon Tackett is former EOD, and he's very big on the veterans things. I think it's Wounded Warriors, and then I know he does another one. So I was like, Dad was asking me questions about them after they left, about like what their wineries were like and where, how their background was for the wine. I'm like, well, they were here. You could have asked them, but you guys were talking Navy things. So,
Yeah.
But Leon, his grandfather was German and brought Gewürztraminer over
Are you
from
kidding
Germany.
me?
Yes.
Yay!
So
Yay,
that
Grandpa!
was so there's another variety so that's what I like about Paso, and it's a very adolescent area, so they kind of just threw everything here and just kind of checked out to see what grew well. And I think we're still learning because people are starting to do all kinds of other things. Like it's exciting. It's an exciting area. To me it's we have no rules, and there's no give it a try instead of like wondering if it's going to work or waiting for someone. It's like, oh yeah, well, let's try this. Let's try some Albarino. Let's do some Pinot Gris. Whatever. Let's try this strange variety that we've never heard of. I mean, it's exciting.
Man, you should give a talk at a graduation ceremony.
Oh my God.
Young winemakers.
That's another one.
Oh, we have another. Oh, here we go.
From John.
Thanks, John. Oh, I hope you guys are doing well. The last time we talked to John, he was enjoying his last bottle of, I think, Lomina. Okay. Oh, he was talking about his short ribs. We got hungry. One of the things we love most about Paso and Pianetta is the passion of the people making the wine. We love the personal connection of the smaller places in addition to the amazing wine they all make. Enjoying your 2017 Zimmer. Ooh, that's a good one. Thank you so much, John. That's really nice. And honestly, exactly what he said is why we don't want to grow. Like, we like the customers we deal with. I thought about that when I was sitting at that table up there at that winery. I'm not going to say where it was, but I'm at this dinner table and I'm like, I'm just enjoying myself. I don't need to be impressed. I mean, the food was delicious and the wine was too, but I sat there and looked around at some of the customers there and I'm like, it's very demanding. And to me, I want to focus more on the wine and just that real connection with my customers as opposed to something like that. So thank you so much, Dawn. I appreciate it. Hope we're keeping up our end of the deal. So I hope that answers that question on the varieties.
No, it does. Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. This one's a fun one. Okay, so some people can make beer at home in the kitchen or in the bathtub. I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Are you kidding?
I wanted to do wine myself. Is it possible?
Oh yeah, in the garage.
Oh yeah, you can do it you can do it in any room. I would like to do it in my closet, actually. No, yeah, the short answer is absolutely. I mean, you can do wine on any scale. Like, there are a lot of small winemakers around harvest time who come and get 5 pounds, they're all over because they'll come in and taste and say, oh, I am getting, 50 pounds of grapes from the vineyard that you had made this petite sirah or whatever it is. But what I like the best is some of the stories of where they're from and how they're going to be making the wine. So in order to answer your question, the most creative one that I heard was these gentlemen who had a passion for Pinot Noir, and they were from Canada.
Okay.
I cannot remember which territory. I want to say whatever is above Montana. I don't know. Where's my map?
I'll look it up.
So
No.
they were on their way down to. They were not getting the Pinot from Paso, Robles. They were on their way down to Santa Barbara, and I go, okay, well, how are you guys going to get it to Canada? Because once you pick a grape, you got to get it going before it starts fermenting on its own and causing some more problems. And so he goes, oh, well, I have all my stuff set up down there. And he goes, what we do is we pick all the grapes, then we put them in he goes, I've researched this a lot, we've done it a lot of ways. Most people who live that far put the grapes in bins that are kind of essentially corrugated wax, like produce would be if it's going to be shipped to
Like
China.
those boxes and stuff.
Yeah, and so they put it in that, and they'll
China.
kind of slowly bring the temperature down to where it's almost freezing, super chill the grapes, and then they can ship it. So a lot of the home winemakers on the East Coast, so they'll get it within 4 days, 3 days. But it'll be, and then they bring it up to temperature and then do their fermentation process.
So they kind of fake the grapes out.
But this guy, so that's the typical thing if you're going to be traveling that far. The other reason he doesn't want to make the wine here is because if it's wine and he crosses the Canada border, it's a completely different tax issue. But if it's grapes, because it's fruit, it's just fruit. Mm-hmm. So what he does is he comes down there, he will actually crush the grapes here on the Central Coast, and he puts them in these little 5-gallon buckets. And he goes, have you ever seen a commercial turkey freezer? And I said, what? I didn't know that there was such an item. And he goes, at Thanksgiving, a lot of grocery stores invest in these turkey freezers. And if they have any of those fresh birds at the end of the season of Thanksgiving, they'll put them through this super chill, I guess it's about the size of a 5-gallon bucket. It goes in, it freezes it, and now you have a frozen turkey. He takes his grapes, which is like a slurry. So after you crush them, it's like a slurry, so it would fit very well in a little 5-gallon container. And I'm like, why not bigger? And he goes, the 5-gallon container is key because that freezing process is so quick. It has to be 5 gallons. If we did something bigger, number one, it wouldn't fit in, but it's going to take too long, and then moving them once we get where we are, all that stuff. So 5-gallon bucket was key. Super freezes his slurry, drives it up in a freezer truck to Canada, imports it as fruit, then makes the wine.
Wow.
Turkey freezer, yeah. So apparently these grocery stores, for the rest of the year, don't use them.
must have some money to be able to.
I have no idea how much it costs. I mean, I have no idea, but that was,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
and honestly, winemaking equipment comes like huge and small. Like we ferment in tanks, but you know, some people ferment in a little 5-gallon like a water jug, like we have on the water cooler. You know, it's yeah. I mean, you can ferment anything. It's gonna ferment anyways.
That's awesome.
You could do it in your little coffee cup.
Okay.
Okay, that was my yes you can story. Although I'm gonna say this about that. Making wine, whatever, I tried to make beer twice and failed.
Oh, really?
Twice, yeah.
I made beer.
Try again.
At home, in the sink.
Were you successful?
Very. But I got it from Trader Joe's. You get it in that sack.
Oh.
You add your water, you add your yeast,
Take notes.
and then it you know, do you want a wheat beer or do you want a Pilsner or whatever, and they sell that kit. And all you do is add the water and then you add the yeast and you hang it in a closet for so many weeks.
So you chose a closet
I
as
did a
opposed to a
closet.
garage.
Well, you know why? It's because it was closer to the kitchen, and if I needed beer, I'd go in there.
Well, there's a question. If you could make beer or wine in any room in your house, which room would you choose?
My bedroom. Then I wouldn't have to get up. I'm hoping they'll stick an IV to me when I'm dying, and they'll hook up some nice Cabernet like this. And I'd go perfectly. I'll go peacefully.
Oh, God, peaceful. Oh my God.
All right, go ahead.
Okay.
Next question.
Do you have to go to school to be a winemaker?
You don't have to.
I mean, but in your experience.
You know, what is actually, the short answer is no. But what's actually interesting is if you talk to a lot of the winemakers here, ask them what even if they have gone back and taken classes now, if you ask them what their degree's in, or if they even went to college, the answers are amazing. I think it's great. And to me, you don't have to go to school. There's no, it's not like becoming a doctor or a lawyer or a hairstylist. You know, I don't have a license. Although you do have to, you are legally responsible, from the legal standpoint. But otherwise, if you didn't know what you were doing, I'm pretty sure it wouldn't be good. But they do have school programs for it, for sure. But you don't have to go.
But
So
you went.
I took some. So when I went to Cal Poly, I was too old, I'm old, so they actually didn't have the viticulture program at Cal Poly
Oh,
when I was,
okay.
the enology.
Okay.
They did have viticulture classes, but there was no major
Mm.
for that. And honestly, I didn't know that I wanted to do wine. So I was a agribusiness major,
Okay.
and I had an international management, international marketing concentration.
That's probably helpful though. I mean, for just business.
You know what? This is what the sad part is. It was international marketing, and so we did a lot of stuff with logistics in different countries and the trade embargoes and things like that. Sometimes I reflect back on that, because when you're shipping alcohol to different states in the United States, it's I thought we were all one country, but it sure feels like you're dealing with 50 different countries.
It's crazy.
It's sad to me, honestly.
Well, and isn't there a couple of them that don't allow you to, I know you're trying to block her out.
Dad just gets in the way.
No, it's not Dad. She had it in front of you.
Oh.
You
That's
were on
fine
your
with
own. She was on her own bottle.
Nobody puts baby in a corner, Anna.
Nobody.
Come on.
Nobody. It's a baby in a corner.
Well, I have a friend who, I think she got promoted, but whatever winery she works at, but she was actually a chemistry major. So I feel like there's different ways you can get.
There's a lot of that crossover. Actually, one of the first winemakers we worked with just as growers, great man. He, the first vineyard that we grew for, camera awesomeness. Oh, you got a compliment on your camera positioning.
I know.
Well, I'm the one who actually, put the camera up there, just, let everybody know.
So the first degree at UC Davis was actually, Davis is, in California, Davis is the one that's most dominantly known for the enology degrees and the viticulture. And to me, they're very research-based and driven. I've taken a few of their extension classes there, and the professors are awesome. I love them.
I love them there too. I do. Not that I'm not a Cal Poly fan, but I think I've always really loved UC Davis.
I was very intimidated because of like all that scientific research and
Yeah.
all of the
They're
how, like you said, the chemistry based biology, but you go and they're so down to earth, and it's great information, easy to explain and understand. I loved it.
aren't they close to Humboldt?
That's so. Anyways, anyway, now I lost my train of thought. Davis. Oh, so the first winemaker we worked with was one of the early graduates, because before they had the enology and viticulture degrees, the whole department was essentially fermentation sciences. So he actually thought he was going to be a beer maker. He wanted to make beer. So anything that's fermented ended up in this program, and he goes, so we had to learn how to make everything, and that's how he ended up in the wine industry, because he loved it. But he goes, we also had to learn how to make salami, because salami is a fermented food.
I mean,
And probably
definitely
kimchi.
salami.
I was like, that's so funny. I'm like, oh,
Salami's great.
awesome.
yeah,
I would love to learn how to make that.
salami.
I make a good salami bread.
Oh, what would you recommend to learn Wine 101? Oh my God, Bonnie, this is a great question for you, I think, because on your enthusiasm, I just sent my brother that book. Okay, what book would you recommend to learn Wine 101? I read the new wine rules, but I want to learn more.
I just so happen to have the Wine Foley book.
Is it Wine Foley or Folly? I don't know.
Foley?
I don't know. I think I don't know.
I guess
And they made a
Wine
documentary off of this, didn't they?
Ooh, did they? I don't know.
Yeah, there's a documentary that based off of the authors that they did.
Right on. But this book I dig. It's really easy, and it breaks it down, from beginning till end, and it has the wine, the science, the art, and the basic wine. So it's going to teach you from the beginning to end. It's actually going to teach you the drinking facts and how to look at a bottle and the sweetnesses. It's going to teach you everything you want to know, and
it's easy to read.
look at these
Lots of
big
pictures.
pictures, and like yes, and that's what I'm saying. And look at that wine barrel. I would go swimming in that. And so I just love it. And then food and wine, it brings you, each session will teach you everything.
It has a lot of information, but
Yeah.
it's conveyed in a very simple way. But there's a lot of other detail too. I love that's
yeah,
a great,
and it's
great
like
reference.
if you want to know something, wonder why this tastes like that. You could actually kind of look it up in there and figure out, okay, this is a Cabernet and it was done in some oak. It'll guide you until it, show you that stuff. So
Well, and that's a great thing, because some of the people who were in today, we were talking about flavor when you taste. So they watch us, and when they go, how do you come up with some of those flavors? And you're like, sometimes I will say I take great, and everyone has a different palate. So if I've never smelled cardamom in my life, or my grandma never cooked with allspice, I would never be able to identify that in a glass. So everyone's palate is based on their own background. So if you eat that boring, boring English food, you're kind of out of luck. No, I'm just kidding. But it's you go to that book, and they have those things where you're like, okay, just go to the simplest thing that you smell. Because when I first started doing it, I'm like, I can just typically smell one dominant flavor, and that's it. And so you sit there and say, okay, well, is it fruit? Is it peppery? Is it spicy? What is it? And then from there, it kind of helps you guide along to figure out what you're tasting or smelling.
And that's what I love about it. It teaches you. It's easy to read, and the pictures are amazing. And it's just a fun. It's a fun book. It's a fun fact book. And if you want to know about wine, I think that's one of the easiest ones to do.
I did. My brother just said I did. When positive. Okay, so we're looking at the positive side of the corona. We have been able to connect on different platforms, obviously. And so when we started doing these videos, my family actually started watching, which was kind of fun to connect on different levels. Mm-hmm. And so they started getting interested in all the things we're doing. So I sent them that book. That was the first thing I did, and it's great. I love that book. So that's,
Yeah.
We should be like they should pay us to say that.
Yeah.
To plug them, but whatever. No, 100%.
And I'm learning
Yeah.
something.
It's an easy one. I mean, I have that giant wine book. I can't remember who made it.
It's the wine Bible.
Yes, it's that
I
big.
have that too.
I can't tell you how few times I've opened that for research because the print is small. There's not as many pictures. It's very hard to read.
And I'll have to bring in my psalm book. That's even more of
It's like reading. You know what? I do like reading the encyclopedia.
Okay.
I love.
Then you're
the
gonna like the
encyclopedia.
psalm book. I'm bringing that so you can take a look at it.
It's like
Let's
reading.
take notes. What?
It's like reading the health department news.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Okay. Would you say you have a signature when it comes to winemaking?
Oh, I don't know. You've seen my signature before. I'm just kidding. A signature. I will say yes. So, winemaking. So when I started doing the winemaking, and if you guys didn't know, so in 2017 when my dad got valley fever, I ended up kind of by default doing it, and I ended up actually enjoying it a lot. So we let him in on our winemaking, but I love how my dad we wanted to present the whole thing about why we got into the winemaking business and the vineyard and all that. His family was farming family, and it was all about quality. And so when he got back into farming, he wanted to present the vineyard and grow the best grape he could. So when we got into the winery, he wanted to present the vineyard that he built. And then when we started making wines from other vineyards, we really want to feature the fruit flavors and the differences in the vineyards. So we're not trying to make the best Bordeaux blend that can compete with France. I'm not trying to make a wine that's going to compete with Napa. I am trying to convey the flavors specific to the vineyards, but which is why we do a lot of 100% vineyard specific and 100% variety. The other thing is I do tend to like a little bit more fruit forward wines, not necessarily fruity, but fruit forward. And I mean, if you're talking about stylistically, I would say lighter tannic wines. I don't prefer a lot of tannins in my wines, but sometimes you work with tannic grapes. So, but yeah, that would be my style in general. I mean, do you agree? You.
Oh, I totally agree. I totally
Do you think
agree. I think, but I don't think they're as fruit forward as I wouldn't call this a fruit forward because I've had those fruit forward jammy wines. You know what I mean? So you are
the light fruity ones
yeah,
too.
You're a medium body style, very approachable wines that I love. That if you like what it's tasting, then drink it. But if you're more like myself, we're tasting the 2018 Reserve Cab. It's tasting amazing. It doesn't have as many tannins in it, but I think that it's even going to be more bold and more beautiful on your tongue and your palate in a year or so. But that's just my opinion.
I agree. And this one, it's like where we were actually, we actually did taste the 18 Reserve Syrah the other day. But I will say that one we need to let, it needs a little time. It needs
So
time.
this actually, the 18 Reserve, do we still have any 17 Reserves?
We have, yes,
16?
I was just doing.
Or 16?
There's no 16 Reserve. There was a two, for the Syrah.
No, for the Cab.
Cab.
Yeah.
We did not make a reserve in 17. So we did a 2016 reserve, which we completely sold out of after the Palooza last year. And then this is the first one we've made since then. So this is the 18.
And I have to tell you, if you love Pianetta Cabs, because that's how they started. This is the fruit that is the fruit. It grows perfectly up on their land. It, like Dad says, that berry it's the perfect grape to grow on his land, and he did very well at picking that. But there's other fruit that grows on the land also, but this is still the original of the Cab. So this is since 97.
Oh yeah, so when we pick our fruit, we typically, so we'll taste the grapes from the whole entire vineyard, and we just kind of go with flavor. You know, because that's one of the biggest things I think I've gotten from my dad is, we have different ways of doing things in the winery, although we still get the same job done. If he's watching, which I know he's not, the same job gets done, Dad. But I will say one of the things that I picked up that was the most important was walking the vineyard when he thought the grapes were ripe. And he actually learned that from another winemaker who he still, you know, has the best regard for. And he goes, you know, just walking the vineyards with these guys is really an experience on its own. There's nothing you can read in a book or learn in a class that can tell you what you're supposed to taste. And so when you taste and they can explain it, you can understand it, that's big. So we walk the whole vineyard and taste the grapes from the different areas of the vineyard. Everything has been replanted except the top area. So depending on the year it was replanted and stuff, you're gonna get differences. We have consistently been picking from the old section. And different spots of the old section, but always the old section, and so it's kind of yeah.
But in one
Happy,
thing,
very happy.
But one thing I can taste with this is Caitlin's 18, but more and more I taste it's because of the grape on, I think, where it's grown or whatever. I don't know if it's the style. I guess it's the terroir that I'm tasting.
It's elegant. I mean, it's like so many different things.
But I could taste yours, but I've tasted an older cab that I can taste the same flavors.
Well, I don't know what you're tasting because I'm not you, and I can't taste with you, and because of the corona, Bonnie.
But it's a little.
Otherwise, I
okay.
totally taste
Okay,
it.
so what we're gonna do is, when we're off, I'll get my old cab and we'll get one of these and I'll explain.
Okay.
Okay,
But
but
I see what you're saying.
it's the style that's coming out because of the earth and because of where this is grown. It's still there. The little signature of your father is still in this wine, and you've inherited.
So would you say the apple falls far from the tree?
The apple didn't fall far from the tree at all with this.
On the
one.
cab.
On
Okay,
the
so
cab.
Nancy, thanks for the question, because actually we were just talking about this the other day as far as the wines that we've been talking about on all of these, as well as if you got your club shipments, you got a little card that says coming soon, Malbec and Cab Franc. So this is why we taste them, so that we can figure out when they're going to be best to release.
I think it's ready.
And so, yeah, we just decided we're looking at possibly mid-June, but definitely by the 1st of July, we'll be releasing the 18 Reserve Cab. We're also going to be releasing the Cab Franc at that time. And we're going to double check. We haven't tried the Malbec yet. We're going to taste that one. The Reserve Syrah will definitely be kind of the latter part of the year.
Excuse me.
Let's see, I'm trying to think. Oh, and the Zinfandel we haven't. Bless you. Oh, look at sanitizer. Thank you, Wine Shine.
I stand beside my arm.
Oh my God. But yeah, so the Zinfandel and the Malbec we will keep you posted on. So, but right now for sure, Cab Franc and Reserve Cab 18 will be released sometime between the 15th of June and the 1st of July.
Okay.
Okay, next question.
Okay. And this could kind of actually be for both of you two, or maybe
It's always
subject,
it's always
or maybe
about-
it's subject. I don't know. What would you say is the most underrated varietal and the most overrated varietal?
Ooh, I think I know what Bonnie's gonna say,
Can't take you back.
but I'm not gonna. Okay, underrated and overrated. Let me think about that one. Underrated.
Well, I'm not saying, I don't think it's, I don't know if I can consider it underrated or overrated.
Oh, I
I
know.
personally think that Grenache and Barbera are the redheaded stepchildren of the grapes because they don't get the respect that they've earned. That's what I think. Grenache,
I love Grenache.
it at its own little varietal, but Grenache has always been a blending grape, and Barbera, you know, it can be a blending grape too. But I think Grenache is the redheaded stepchild of the grapes, so that's
Okay.
my
go Merlot. Gotta go Merlot. Underrated grape. Merlot was an amazing wine, grape, and everything. It as a blender and a standalone. So that's the other thing. Is like you got to look at it as like, you know, is it the show pony or is it the workhorse? And to me, Merlot is 100% the workhorse. Like it's an amazing wine, and when well done, is delicious with many meals. It overproduced, and then because of the movie, like look what happened with the Pinot. So
Yeah.
maybe I'll go with Pinot as my overrated, but I do actually like Pinot. I just think it was overproduced, and it's difficult until you really know the specific wineries to take a chance on a Pinot.
Yeah, and I agree with the overrated is the Pinot. And one of the reasons why with me, you know, studying to be a somm, I have to tell you, the master somms and somms, it's about the Pinot and it is about the Riesling. It's they just think those are the greatest things in the whole freaking world. They do.
Just got a funny comment from a friend of mine. What's wrong with redheads, funny?
Oh,
The redheaded stepchild.
nothing. I'm just saying, you just don't get the respect that you've earned. Is all I'm saying.
Well, and to
It's
kind
a
of
compliment.
piggyback off of what you're like saying, like studying to be a somm and what somms think,
Mhm.
and kind of the romanticism about being a somm is, I was once told that during a somm training, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, so when you open the bottle
Mhm.
and you hear the pop when you open the bottle, right? Do you like that sound? Right?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I don't.
No.
The pop when you open
So,
the bottle?
I don't try to pop my.
So-
I don't.
and-
Oh wait, you mean with the champagne? I thought when
No, I
okay.
mean
Oh,
when you
okay, yeah.
open, like when you're opening a bottle, because it was disrespecting the wine when you have.
Yeah,
the
I don't
pop.
know. I like it to come out really slow.
That's what she said.
I like it.
I had to.
I didn't. No, I don't like. It's because maybe it's because yeah. I don't like the pop. I don't like to hear the pop because number one, sometimes when the pop comes out, wine will come.
She just
shooting
wants
after.
to ease out. You got it, yeah. Well, and actually, so this is another thing. So I thought you were talking about champagne, and that when the proper way to open champagne is actually to twist the cork out and then hold it over the bottle as to not release as much of the CO2.
And I was told that you turn the bottle. You
Yes,
don't turn the
don't
cork.
Yes. that's right.
And they teach you that when you're getting your certification or
No,
from school.
I taught myself.
Okay.
Well, we were talking about this because Bonnie is a California wine appellation specialist, which she went to classes for and then took a test. Where a sommelier, so a sommelier, there's the different levels, and a lot of it is it's concentrated both on service as well as wine knowledge, as well as palate. So, and the higher up you get, the harder it gets, kind of like Zelda.
Exactly.
But yeah, so a lot of it, like a sommelier is about this hospitality part too, because a sommelier is not necessarily just, it's not supposed to be a teacher per se. They're supposed to be helping you, because it's like, they're hospitality industry. The restaurants hire them, they are their own bosses and they have, but it's all service driven. They are supposed to help you figure out the best wine for your meal or your palate or your situation or whatever it is. But that's a big difference, where hers is kind of more like
And that's one reason,
educationally based.
right? And that's one reason why I did.
No offense towards either though,
I
by
mean,
the way.
I'm working on it. I mean, I'm going to go take my test. I'm going to go take the test so I can become a sommelier, but just the written part. I don't want to be
What if
working
there's
on
no
it.
pictures on the test?
Shit, that's gonna be hard. I think I'll write all the answers on my hand.
I need pictures, I get.
But anyways,
I
that's
think you
why
pass
the
with
California
flying
wine
colors.
appellation specialist, I love my California wine, so that's my main driven thing, is I wanna learn my wines. But anyways.
So I guess,
40, I'm not sure.
okay, one more question. Oh, one more question, then we should talk about the new opening procedure.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So,
And I think this is a good last time question is, if
We're
you
gonna do
have-
one more question, but if you guys have questions, send them in.
And all the money in the world, no restrictions. What varietal would you want to get your hands on? If you could, which one would you want to do? And if climate wasn't an issue.
Okay.
Make it easier for you.
I'm glad you guys didn't hear that because I have never even heard tube steak as a varietal. Bonnie. You better study for that sommelier test.
I'm going to, I'm wondering.
Mommy! You know what? I'm going to put another stipulation on that question because I think it's not just, you got to take money out of it, you got to take climate out of it, but you also have to take my experience out of it because there are certain wines that, I mean, obviously I've been able to taste perhaps, never been able to get my hands on because it's like nowhere around
So
here.
your fantasy wine.
Okay, that's a difficult one. There's a couple. One is kind of something that I probably could do, be more stylistic though. I know it sounds odd, it is a sparkling red wine. So they do make them in Australia, I know. So the first one I had heard of was a sparkling Shiraz from Australia. It is not a sweet wine, it is not a dessert wine, it is not an aperitif. It is literally a wine that is made kind of like champagne, but it is a red wine. And then we talked about another one during one of our sessions, but that would be, I would love to do something like that, a sparkling Shiraz. So a Shiraz made in that style. Oh golly, the other, it's so hard because we do have a lot here, and I mean, you know, if you put your mind to it, Anna, you can do anything you want.
Love these.
Hand sanitizer.
Yeah, oh,
Oh, that's right. Dang it.
I'm sorry, we're
If
safe
I call in
practicing.
tomorrow, wait, I didn't get it.
Oh man, here we go. There we go. These are so hard off the cuff because I don't have, you know, I'm
You
trying
need
to think.
another.
I'm sanitizing the table.
I think I need another splash of that cab because I can't think.
You know,
What would you think that would be a fun one?
Well, I have to tell you, it's kind of hard for me because I guess I don't know. I mean, I love all different wines. I love to try different wines, and it's wonderful. I've always loved Carignan.
Oh.
Okay.
And Carignan is like, I think more of a blending grape too.
Mm-hmm.
But to find a good Carignan, and those are more up in Sonoma or like Monterey County up that way because they need the cooler.
Mm-hmm.
But I really like the flavor that a Carignan will give, and it's good food or no food, but it has a different distinguished taste. And I guess that's what I like about it, you know? Like I love my Merlots, I love my Cabs, I love all but it's always fun to find a different wine like the Cab Franc. You know, it's the new friend that you don't know. So there's so many wines out there that a lot of people don't even know.
Mm-hmm.
It's because they've never had the experience, and that's one reason why you need to go wine tasting. Because you need to go taste it.
You'll find these different ones.
You'll find so many wines out there that are just so amazing, and it's fun. And that's it.
Oh yeah, no, I love it. Bonnie, I think Bonnie has tasted so many more wines than I have. I'm very centric, although I have had a few different things. So I'm going to answer that question in a way where I'm not saying it's because I love the wine. I'm saying because I'm curious about it. You know, like I'm curious to go check it out. One of the ones that so I have three. Sorry, anyone who knows me knows I can never decide and I can never pick one thing. So, number one, Wild Horse, it's true story. Wild Horse used to make, and actually still does the last time I went there. And that's the great thing about Wild Horse. Even though they did get bought out by larger corporations, they do still maintain some of that foundation from Ken Vogt. So they go mass distribution with I think 3 or 4 or 5 products, but they still make small amounts of other things that they grow on the property. One of which is a grape called Blaufränkisch, and it is, I believe, Hungarian? I can't remember. Oh, no, it's German. Isn't it German? It's it is a really neat little wine. I don't know much about it, so I would do that because I'm curious about
Well, and
it. And it sounds like Frankenstein would be great for Halloween.
And you know what? and it's in the Wild Horse here.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go because I
I have a bottle at my house. Weird. I'll bring it up.
God, and then we'll share the other bottle.
Maybe we need to have like a quarantine party.
A bottle sharing party.
Okay, so the other one, and or the other two. So one is a grape called Tokay. Now, I don't know much about it. I have not done much research, but the only reason I know it,
She's looking it up.
No.
Tokay is a forest in Hungary, which we get our barrels from. However, when my great-grandparents had a vineyard in Lodi, they grew Tokay grapes. And what was interesting about those grapes is they are very, are you guys playing footsies?
Yeah.
Is there some secret going on?
No,
here?
I think she was trying, I thought you were trying to get out the phone.
No, so they have this vineyard of Tokay, and those grapes could be used for a lot of different ways. So you could make wine with them. You could, for alcohol, I think you could also have them as a table. Well, you can have any grape as a table grape. They're edible, whatever. But we actually sold. So my great grandparents sold their Tokay grapes to, I believe, Christian Brothers to color their brandy. So it wasn't the grape for the distillation process of the brandy, but it was the grape to help color.
Is that like the white, what is?
I don't know anything about Tokay, to be quite honest.
Oh, okay.
So it's because I'm curious about it. That's why I do anything, is because I'm curious about it. So the third is Gamay, because
I've never heard of that.
I had, you know who has I have to
Does
say,
anybody
it's,
have those?
So have you ever heard of Beaujolais other than my
Yes.
dog?
yes,
So Beaujolais Nouveau is made out of Gamay grapes.
and you know who has a really nice Gamay is Gainey down in San Ynez.
Well, because, the first time I had a regular Gamay, I was like, this is kind of good. But then the first time I've had Beaujolais Nouveau, I was like, mm-mm.
You didn't like Beaujolais Nouveau?
No.
But do you like the Beaujolais?
I have had it only twice, and that's why I don't really go after it. One time it was okay, one time it was horrible,
Okay.
so I don't search it out.
So we're gonna, this Thanksgiving, I'm gonna get a Beaujolais, and then if we have our Thanksgiving dinner, you're gonna have to try that Beaujolais, and you need to, and I like it just a hair chilled,
Yeah.
and it's perfect with turkey.
Ooh.
Okay?
Okay.
So,
Okay. Well, there's that.
we'll
If
see.
you guys, if you guys have any questions, let us know.
And you're still there, is what we wanna know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're good. I have.
We've
You
been
guys are
rattling
there.
on, we've been
I
rattling
know.
on for an hour and
We
15 minutes.
apologize. We got carried away today. It was so exciting because we've had a long day because we were actually open today. And so Bonnie, can you show them the tasting experience? So we have been able to open in a kind of like interim period. We have to offer you a quote unquote hearty meal, which we do. It is actually listed in our POS as hearty meal. We have actually paired up with Di Romano's across the street, and we'll be pairing a like an Italian sausage in her family recipe marinara sauce with some French rolls. It is, I can smell it right now, which I'm gonna have just after we're done here.
Yeah, you can't eat, not just eat.
But while you taste, you do have to enjoy a hearty meal. You can take it to go, I don't care. But
Or you
You
can
do
say
have
you
to.
bought it for $5 and don't eat it. I don't care.
I don't care.
We can donate that $5.
Oh my God, that's a great idea.
Oh my God. Okay,
Anyways,
that's something else tomorrow.
another story for
Tomorrow.
another day.
Saturday.
We're just riding the
Saturday.
high of actually being able to interact with people. And just so you guys know, we have a lot of sanitation practices going on here. One of which we're going to show you. So this is the tasting experience at Pianetta right now. So can you move Dad's head out of the way? I'm going to go ahead and move this forward. So this here is a tray with 4 wines in it. These are the 4 wines wines we're tasting, you get a little card that has those wines and their descriptions. But guess what? We're serving a 5th wine. So what you do is you get your first wine in the glass, and just so we don't have any more glass to bottle contamination, which is a huge issue these days, just like STDs and those crazy kids. Yeah, I'd say put that up in the front of the screen. So this is the sheet you get.
So the first one, I'm going to show you this. The first sheet. Okay. So this
Do you
is
want me to hold it?
right here. Right here is the first glass, which would have been a jug wine, and then we put this sheet in front of the
Your little
tasting,
tray.
and then take a look. Caitlin put these little glasses in the bottom so people
Are
pictures.
for the bigger words.
Yeah,
Pictures
it's for
for the
people
bigger
to
words.
learn.
Absolutely.
So we put that right in front of how they're tasting, and so they don't get lost.
And then watch this. Guess what? So I'm going to taste the first taste in my glass. Ooh. I'm also going to talk to Bonnie, who's behind the counter at a safe distance, because when she comes too close to me, I can't understand her because she has a mask on. But if she is more than 6 feet away, she can remove the mask.
I removed the mask.
So she can tell me about my first wine, which for right now, until June 1st, we are tasting the jug wine first.
Jug wine. It's a great blend. It's 60% cab. It's 30% Zinfandel, 7% Petite Syrah. Oh, no, so 7% Sangiovese and
3% Petite Syrah.
3%.
And you know, I am so glad because I have these icons. I know that that's what's in my glass.
Yes.
And then I know I'm going to go ahead now, because she doesn't want to pour that bottle into my contaminated glass rim or get close to my mouth. I'm going to take this little glass. I'm going to pour it in.
That's Sangiovese.
That's okay. I need a blend.
Sangiovese.
And then it's a self-serve tasting situation. Hands-free for employees, and the customer feels safe too. So we will be doing this right now. We are, and guess what?
And there's more.
If you don't have time for a tasting, you can take a glass to go. And I'm gonna come walk up, there goes my water bottle.
We're allowed to sell wine glasses to go. And we have these great little Go Vino plastic glasses.
With your regular glass, you're gonna get a Go Vino, which is bendable. You can't break it, with some saran wrap on top. Now that is your first, this is called the base model.
But it's going to have a lot more wine in it. It's not going to have just a little, but we just
You'll
wanted
have
to show
your,
you.
so you can go to the park and drink. It's kind of like funny that
Or you could be really bougie.
we are now doing what the homeless people have been doing for years, is taking wine to the park to drink.
Yes.
Or what we suggest, which Anna experienced last week, while she and her friend met for a picnic in the park, is our tumbler, insulated tumbler mugs, which I know this is backwards. We have the red, white, and blue here for Memorial Day. This opens up. They're washable, they're rinsable, they're refillable. Oh my gosh, and also won't break. These are great for hot or cold beverages.
Yes.
I drink coffee out of mine.
If you're drinking a cold wine, if you like cold wine, it keeps it cold for like 3 or 4 hours. If you're drinking a wine that's room temperature and you go out to the park, it's not going to get hot. It's going to keep it that room temperature that you poured it nice, perfect, that touches those lips.
So
And they have so they've lifted, because one of my concerns when I had my meal and my bottle out in the park, it was very nice, because Paso Robles doesn't have
the open container.
the open container policy.
They have, this is the other reason that we love Paso Robles. We love Paso. Our county has really been very lenient on those rules and restrictions because of all of this. They know that we want to socialize. They know that we want to get out and enjoy the Central Coast. So they have allowed certain public spaces to be utilized for enjoying takeout food because you couldn't dine in, which now you can dine in, but it's very restrictive. It's 50% capacity. So they are still allowing takeout. For example, when I went and got my margarita, my friend actually ate. I did not because I had already eaten. But before we left, they said, would you like a margarita to go? I felt like I was in New Orleans. I actually didn't take it because I had a lot of work to do for opening here today. But you can still take drinks to the park. And people are being very understanding right now, which is great. We appreciate it so much. Thank you, law enforcement, so much. And people are, I mean, I was walking around last night and no one, it was very calm. It was great. It's been wonderful. So right now you can still drink in the park. We're hoping that if we behave ourselves really, really well, that we can continue doing this even after things have lifted. Because we don't even know what the new normal is going to look like. Tomorrow could be a new day. We have no idea.
Yep.
Next week could be something else. So right now, we are open from Thursday through Sunday, 12 to 6. We will update that next week again because I have a feeling that we might have some changes to those concepts. So we'll let you know.
Yeah.
But yeah. Well, Anna, I'm so glad you got to join us today. Why don't you put a little of that wine that's in that tasting jar in your glass. I have touched this one, so make sure you don't touch this one.
Reserve Syrah. This is the.
If you guys have any questions, shoot them in because we're gonna say goodbye soon. But I thank you guys so much for joining us as well today.
Right on.
And we'll let you know. We should see you Wednesday of this next week. If you guys have a topic that you want us to reach out on, let us know because we have a few items left, but we're kind of running out of thoughts. I mean, we do this all the time, but we want to know what you guys want to know, and that's why it was so great to have Anna here and ask us
And we have a
questions.
YouTube channel.
Oh,
We
by
have
the
a
way,
YouTube channel, so go on. You can watch us live.
Anna,
YouTube.
yeah, if you missed the whole thing, you can go to YouTube.
Yes.
Anna
If you
created
missed
us
us,
our YouTube
And
channel.
if you love us, you know.
Call
You should
1-800.
Send
Send us $10 today. I remember when I was a kid, there was this silly law firm, and I'm sure it was one of those like get your money now things. But it was, I will never forget the jingle, 1-800-462-5555. Anyways, so just so you guys know, while we do our safe social distancing and tasting room, we are concerned about your wellness as well as ours. And so one of the things, we have had a lot of stuff to go over, which is why we're kind of a little out of it tonight, or I am anyways. We have a lot of protocols that we have to follow now, and one of which is monitoring your health daily, all the time. So before you come in, you have to do a home self-check.
For
And, I'm sorry, for what?
for employees.
For all employees, and then you have to report that you are okay to work or not, or whatever, to me. However, there's a lot of privacy issues restricting that. So this morning, Bonnie, the first thing she told me this morning was, I am good, I am healthy, I feel good, no fever, no cough. And I said, great. But how did you check that this morning?
Well, when I woke up, I felt my head, and I thought I was a little warm, but I did my test. But then I went and got my thermometer. And my thermometer, it's for the big girls.
You know what?
So
Yeah,
I
feel
can
like
read.
I need a quarter so people can see how large that is.
And you know one thing that's so
For
cool
reference.
about this thermometer is you can use it both ways. Just letting you know. See this little thing here? It attaches to your pants while it goes in, or I can just hold it.
You know, I actually am going to admit, I said, you know, Bonnie, I go, we have, I think we have our thermometer here in our health kit at the tasting room, but I actually offered to buy thermometers for all the employees, and she goes, it's okay, I have my own. And I've seen it.
I don't have a thermometer.
I'll get you one.
I'll sanitize this. I'll sanitize this, and you can use it.
if I have a temperature, I'm usually dying in bed. Ask Caitlin.
Oh my
I ate
God.
an egg. Remember that one time?
At band camp?
One time I called in.
Oh.
Sick. I was,
Yeah, I
Ow,
believe you
ow.
though. Like I do believe you
Ow.
because whenever anyone is okay, I'm gonna answer one question real quick. John Smallwood asked. Okay, so Caitlin, this question was more appropriate for your previous episode. But how many times will you use a barrel? How many vintages? I apologize because I thought we did address that, but I really didn't. I kind of glazed over it because I do remember how we were trying to explain all the barrels because there's just so much about the barrels. So every winery is different. A barrel is good technically for as long as it's structurally sound. However, we get concerned about the bacteria and things that can grow. So we typically keep a barrel in our program for about 10 years. The first year, we consider it a new barrel. After the first year, the first usage, I should say, one usage is about 2 years, sometimes one more, but 2 years generally. On the second usage, it is considered used but not neutral. After 3 usages, which is a 6-year cycle, we would consider it not imparting an oak influence, but still offering those oak aging capabilities. And then it'll be neutral until it gets kicked out of the program. And sometimes, sometimes there are other structural issues though, and you have to kick them out. That's just like if your car gets wrecked or something like that. But otherwise, short answer is about 10 years. I hope that answers the question. And how many vintages that would be? That would be roughly 4 to 5 vintages, 10 years. So it's a 2-year cycle per vintage, but you never know where the barrel is going to end up. So if we do a reserve, that's a 3-year cycle or whatever.
Yeah,
but,
that's what I was gonna
Yeah.
ask. So sometimes the barrels can be used longer. Like for reserves, a lot of times people will keep it in there like an extra year because it's a reserve wine.
Yeah, and that's great. And then, that does not cause any more detriment on the barrel. We number our barrels on the date that we purchase them, so that's how we track their progress.
Cool.
Alrighty, if there's any other questions, let us know. But otherwise, cheers. Thank you guys. Thank you, Anna, for finally joining our fun
Hey,
little thing.
I did the
Oh.
thing. I did. Oh,
I'm
okay.
looking at your eye.
Here's looking at you, kid. That's what you gotta say. No one's looking at me though, so I hope you guys are. Thank you. Thanks for joining us. We cheers you. Cheers. Cheers. Come visit us. Give us a call if you have any questions
Yeah,
or
we're ready
concerns.
for you to come in.
Awesome.
Thank you. Awesome.
Awesome.
Awesome
We will see you guys on Wednesday, hopefully. Cheers.
I'm the last one.
The last.
Bye.
That's my hand.
Hi. It's my puppet.